I've got a great one for you today. We're going to be taking a look at the Transwarp fan. It's bought by ICOLER, and it's a pretty good looking fan. Let's go and check it out. So we got a little spec information for this fan. This is the reverse blade version, so that means that the pretty side is facing up. It's pretty much a bog standard 120mm class fan, 2000 RPM, there's a CFM, millimeters of H2O, and at this time I'd like to thank ICOLER for sending me the sample to review. Want to get a couple other notes about this channel out of the way while we're here. One, I've added extra bonuses for my memberships, both in YouTube and in Patreon, where if you're in the higher two tiers, you gain access to my raw data. So if you want to be nerd out, like me, with the data, you can sign up, join up, and I can give you access to it by a monthly basis with the month-long memberships, and as I update the files, I'll update the files with new fans. What else? As always, I'm always trying to save. If you got the monetary means, please think about joining as a YouTube member or Patreon regardless, because that money really does go a long way in making this channel possible and being able to buy fans from companies that will send it to me, or to finally buy some test hardware, actually like a test computer, to get thermal data, because I know a lot of you have been requesting that. It's just not something I can do right now. But I know that not everybody has the means or the ends to do that. So just hitting that subscribe button, hitting the like button really does go a long way in making this video possible. Anyways, let's get on to our regularly scheduled program. Right now, it's just doing a basic rainbow pattern. You can see that it's got the RGB ring here in the middle and a nice halo ring around the outside. I actually think that it's a pretty refined looking RGB. Certainly not as gaudy as some of the other designs out there. So this will give you a more subtle RGB type appearance. And if we take a look at the back of the fan, well, unfortunately there is none to speak of. So basically this fan would sit right there in the floor of your case, something like that. And it has a infinity mirror right here on the side, also doing that halo effect. So it looks pretty cool, just synced up with the rest of the fan. So you'd see this from the side of your case, and you would see the top looking down into it. So one thing about this fan you do have to think about is where you're going to put it inside your case. So right now the air is blowing towards my camera because this is a reverse blade fan. So that means you should be looking at it basically like this. This would be the pretty side. You'd be looking down into your case like this, and you see the infinity mirror on one side or on either side. Whoops, I forgot to peel. That should make it look a little bit better. The infinity mirror is pretty good looking. Certainly see plenty in there. So right now, again, the air is going towards the back of the case. So if you put it towards the front, you'd see it like this. But then you have to think about what kind of view you're going to get from the front of your computer case. If it is pretty well blocked off, it may not matter very much. And of course, you have to think about the sound profiles, whether or not this fan suits your particular needs. Yeah, if we take a look at the back, you're not getting, it doesn't look particularly good. There's no RGB, and that's a cost-saving measure on this fan, and there's nothing absolutely wrong with it. But it means if you put it at the top of your case, like this, you're going to be taking a look at the ugly side. So when buying this fan, you just have to think about what sort of orientation the fan placement is going to be, and you could get one of the other fans that this company produces. That is their regular edition, and mix and match as you need to. And now locking in a specific color profile, the evenness of the colors around the ring look pretty good visually, but on the camera you can see a couple of the highlights on it. Overall, I think if you like RGB and you'd like this sort of appearance, particularly the infinity mirrors, this is definitely a budget option for that instead of lian-li's expensive fans. The first series of tests are my case simulation test, with a case simulate up here in the corner. So you have a computer case, you got the fans in the front, and you're blowing air back towards an air cooler. This testing is most specifically applicable towards air-cooled type systems. At the 6-inch mark, my first data point, the it would be a mini ITX, so the fans would be sitting really close to that air cooler, assuming, you know, it's a pretend scenario because a lot of ITX cases are so small. But let's just say it could fit in that kind of thing. Or it would also be you have fans in the floor of your case and you're blowing them up towards your GPU. Both those would be very applicable to that 6-inch mark. The 9-inch mark is a compact tower. Think a computer case that's about the length of a standard ATX motherboard, but no extra room beyond that. So a GPU would be very short, it would be a very compact tower. Think 220mm class clamp fans in terms of its length. Then we got the 11-inch mark. This would be your standard mid towers, 320s, or a standard 360 AIO. And then you got your truly large towers at the last data point for that front to back airflow, holding approximately 340mm class fans at the 14.5-inch mark. First, we need a baseline comparison point. I've mathematically created a control fan. It is 3 parts A12X5 to 1 part A14, just for something to compare all my fans against. Were fans that perform over it I consider to be good, better, best. Fans that perform underneath it doesn't mean that they're necessarily a bad fan. It just means that they are not the top ranked ones. And different fan manufacturers also focus on different things for their fans. So the Transwarp in particular is more of an RGB focused fan as opposed to an airflow focused. But as we can see in the testing, it actually does okay compared to it. But we need to look at it 100%. I was thinking of ahead that I had one more was going on to the next round. But anyways, it performs relatively closely to my control fan. So that is an overall good result, considering it's a reverse blade fan, which a lot of times are notorious for not having the best performance because the struts block off the airflow coming into the fan, where fans generally are better at pushing than they are at pulling air in. So how does it compare against other fans? The first note here is that the Transwarp has a very flat line. Like a very flat line. It's impressive. Most fans around here don't, they tend to arc downward at this 11 decibel mark. So the Transwarp is already doing an excellent job, and I put it as a good category. There are ones that perform a little bit better than it, but it's overall doing pretty quite well, I would say. And when we compare to other fans in a bar graph form, again, this is at that 10.5 decibel mark. The Transwarp is sitting a little bit towards the bottom, but it's not too far of an outlier. We're only taking a look at like the 6 and the 11-inch mark, and you can kind of see how things rank up, where it's significantly better than other fans that focus on RGB in the same sort of price range, but it's not quite at that top tier that we see with some other fans. And in the graph, you also see some other fans that are much more expensive than it. Now we're on to our next data point, which is the 18 decibel mark. I had to do a little correction up there. But right here in this yellow line, we have the Transwarp, and it's sitting pretty much in the middle of the pack for this selection of fans. Again, the selection is mostly my less expensive fans. However, I did include several of the ones that are more top rated, like the TL B12 Extreme, P12 Master Fan, TLS12. The TLS12 is the kind of the top pick for value fan. However, that one doesn't have the same oomph in lighting that we see from the Transwarp. So it's, where on the spectrum do you want? Do you want maximum airflow? Do you want maximum RGB? Do you want somewhere in the middle? And it's up to you to decide where you want to spend your money. It's your money. I'm just trying to present data to you. Putting it into bar graph form, the Transwarp is sitting towards the bottom middle. 6 and 11-inch marks, data sets shown. But overall, it's okay. At the 100% PWM fan signaling, here it sort of will fall back a little bit because other fans can spin much higher RPMs, and I wanted to include those in the dataset, like the B12 Extreme, P12 Max, Grand Tornado. But amongst the lower RPM fans, it's right in the pack. It makes a lot of sense where it's placed, and even its noise level is in line with other ones. Matter of fact, its closest visual appearance equivalent is the Unifan SL Infinity, which is a substantially more expensive fan than it. And they have very similar performance characteristics. So if you like the Unifan Infinity, but you don't have the money for it, this is a great alternative because they have similar noise levels at similar performance levels in terms of case airflow. Putting into new graph forms, these are some of my newer graphs because of your viewer suggestions. I'm always trying to include suggestions that I'm able to incorporate easily. And I got the one for normalizing to specific RPMs. So the first one is an 800 RPM. This ignores noise level altogether for this graph. The Transwarp is sitting right here in the bottom middle area. And compared to other fans that are similar in price, it's actually doing quite well. Matter of fact, it's doing better than the Unifan SL Infinity, which is a substantially more expensive fan than it. Although, albeit it's a little bit more expensive, but at these noise levels, the fan is basically silent altogether. Moving up to 1500 RPM. Right here is the Transwarp. Again, same kind of positioning, bottom middle. And it's still outcompeting the Unifan SL Infinity. Once again, beating out a much more expensive fan, which is a truly impressive result. Bumping things up to 2000 RPM. That is this fan, around the fan's maximum RPM. And it's still right in line with the Unifan SL Infinity. So great results overall. It does lag behind the Infinity at bigger cases or smaller cases. But bigger cases, they are near and identical. But if you are trying to reach maximum performance levels, there are better fans out there, but they may not have the visual appearance that you would like. Now we're going to take a look at the 9-inch mark for airspeed vertical versus noise level horizontal. And right here in this yellow highlighted line is the Transwarp. Now, once again, the story is basically the same for this fan. There are fans that outperform it in overall maximum airspeed, but overall it's sitting in a okay position. And again, we need to temper that idea where this fan is made on a budget, and we're going to get into the value at the end of this video. And with a budget in mind, it produces a lot of light. So if maximum visual performance, visual cueing, so RGB, lighting effects are more what you're looking for, it certainly could be a great pick with regard to that. Taking a look at the same thing, but this time in Sone. Sone is just a different way of taking a look at noise. I have a whole video on it about the Sone measurement system. You just need to check it on my channel. It's there. And it's sitting right there in the middle. 45%. %. Okay, now we're going to take a look at performance to my CPU cooler, the Noctua U12A. I also have acquired a radiator thanks to viewers like you, and my Patreon and YouTube members subscribing have allowed me to make that purchase, and I'm going to have a comparison graph here in a hot minute. But the first graph here that we're taking a look at is meters per second versus RPM. It's blade efficiency. And we have my control fan in the diamonds, and we have the Transwarp in the squares. And it's not quite as RPM to airspeed efficient as my control fan, but it's also not terrible. Its noise efficiency, it doesn't quite compete. It just isn't as noise efficient design as my control fan. Not saying it would be bad, because maybe it would be okay for you, but empirically, based on the data points, this is where they are. And I'm sorry, I don't have the data set, but the air cooler is red, the radiator is blue, and they line up near on perfectly. Now this is airspeed versus decibels. It is not the thermal performance. I fully expect to see a radiator outperform thermally than a heatsink. but in terms of how restrictive it is for airflow to go through it, and then take a reading at the end with my current measurement equipment, they're near an equivalent, and I'm calling them effectively equal. We can see that there's slight differences, but they're minuscule, all things considered. So I'm effectively calling them equal for the current level of testing I can do. So taking a look at things in a bar graph form. So up here is my key or legend, and the Transwarp is shifted towards the bottom of the graphs. It isn't a superstar high-end performer, but it's also a reverse blade fan, which means if you're going to use this fan, you'd probably put it on the back side of a radiator or something and pull air through it, or put it as the back fan on a heatsink. It's just outside what the normal use case for this fan would be, where it's more of a visual fan as opposed to a cooler fan. But for completeness of testing, I went ahead and did it. Other fans that compete on the same sort of price, you have the TLS-12W, which would bring significantly higher than it. And where's another one? Another fan that competes visually, the Unifan SL Infinity, sitting right here, a little bit outperforming it overall. But even a couple dozen points of airspeed does have significant changes in how much thermal performance a fan can have or affect on a radiator, as per my key over here. And I have a whole video discussing this topic as well if you're interested. Normalizing to RPM, the Transwarp is shifted towards the bottom. Once again, compared to other fans that are similar price, it's right in line with where it should be. There are a couple that outperform it, but again, it's a reverse blade fan, so it's actually doing really quite well. Bumping things up to 1,500 RPM. It's slightly underperforming, but it's right in line with like the Unifan SL Infinity. Oh, and I forgot to note this on the previous graph. This text over here, this is how I weighed the calculation for, I have airspeed, the decibels, and calculating out a weighing factor for how to rank these fans. So it's basically 7 parts airspeed to 1 part noise performance, and then averaged to rank the fans. So the Transwarp, this is where it ended up lying at this fixed RPM. Bumping things up to 2,000 RPM, close to this fan's maximum. It is shifted towards the bottom, but it's in line, similar to other fans like the P12 ARGB, with a slightly higher but similar noise level, the Unifan SL Infinity, and a couple other fans down there. Cranking things up to 100% PWM fan signaling, this is where the fan sits. So it does outperform lower RPM fans, which is a good thing it does. Helps with that ranking. But compared to other 2,100 RPM fans, it is shifted towards the bottom of those. So ICOLER could just invest in some engineering work on the blade design to try to make it a little bit more efficient, and I look forward to seeing them improve designs going forward. Now we're into noise performance through the CPU air coolers, vertical airspeed, horizontal decibels, and the Transwarp is sitting towards the bottom end of it. No helping its reverse blade design, it's just not really the most applicable for it. But I'm surprised by how well it actually did. Let me put it that way. It did surprisingly well. And it's not insanely away from other fans. There were no bad harmonics in the design. So overall, I'm relatively impressed by this fan. When we take a look at the same thing in Sone, this is the way it takes a look like. You can kind of see how it's not a crazy amount deviating away from many other sort of middle tier performing fans. But if raw performance is what you're looking for as opposed to RGB appearance, there are other options out there for you. Next set of graphs are CFM testing. CFM testing is you have a tube, you have a fan, you slap the fan onto the tube, and you blow air down the tube. It doesn't allow the air to expand, so that all fans should basically perform similarly. Now, a note with this test, some fans just perform really badly on it, and I have no idea why. It's one of the reasons why I want to overhaul my whole testing methodology. And it leads me back to the point that I made at the beginning. I can't do it without help from viewers like you. There's just a lot of upfront investment cost in buying the testing apparatuses to improve the testing methodology. So right now I'm a little bit stuck with that, where like Scythe fans do particularly bad in this test. So ICOLER, if you're watching, don't really worry too badly about this, because your Transwarp fan actually performed relatively well in other tests. So I think it's just something with this test in particular. So with that, we already know that it's CFM versus RPM and CFM versus decibels. It performed poorly in it. Let's move on. Compared to other fans, it performed poorly in it. And ironically, here's some other fans that performed poorly. SWA fan EX reverse plate performed really badly. The EX RGB forward facing performed okay, but not particularly great. And you can see other fans that just kind of tanked in this test. 100% PWM fan signaling. It's still ranked at the bottom, so we're going to just keep things moving, bring towards the bottom. All right, now we are on to value. This is a $13 fan. At time of filming, this fan was not on sale, so that's the price that we're completely going off of. And at $13, it is pretty much in the middle for at the 6-inch mark, and at the 11-inch mark, it's a little bit under middle in terms of its value per performance. Now, value proposition is just performance per dollar. It ignores things like noise performance. It ignores things like RGB appearance that the fan has. So if maximum RGB at a reasonable amount of airflow is what you're looking for, this graph will only tell you part of the story, and you have to make up the rest of the options with taking a look at how it looked in the RGB appearance and the visual kind of section of this video. It's just limitations with the producing graphs and making them look nice and that sort of thing. And certain things are user opinion based, like that visual appearance. I can't make that decision for you. So empirically it sits here. If the fan price went down by a couple dollars, I could see that this would start jumping up quite a few places in terms of its value. One of the top picks in terms of value is the TLS12. Mind, it doesn't have the same amount of RGB as this fan, but it performs a little bit better. CFM testing, the Transwarp performed horribly in this test. Let's just move on. CPU cooler testing, bottom middle of the pack, not a terrible position, noise normalized or at 100% in terms of value, but there are ones that perform significantly better than it for value. But again, do they have the amount of RGB that you would want? And reverse blade fans are kind of particular in that way, where it's opposite of the normal airflow fan. So is that the look that you're going for? And that gets us to the end of the video. This is my raw data. The raw data does belong to me. If you want to use it for your own personal use, you may go ahead and do so. But if you're going to use it in any sort of written publication or journal, I do ask that you reference me and my channel, because I'm the one who generates the data, and it takes a long time to update graphs and generate the data and yada, 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 yada. If you like what I'm doing, please think about joining me as a YouTube member or as a Patreon. Paid memberships, like I said at the beginning, now have access to my raw data upon request, and they'll have access to it for a month-long period. If you renew your membership, I will maintain that access. It just requires an email address to grant access to it. So what do I think about the Transwarp? Well, I actually really like the way the RGB on this fan looks. It's not something that shows up in my raw data. It's missing from that, and it's not something that can be shown up in raw data in an empirical format. because it's very personal. I like the halo rings that it has, and I like the infinity mirror that the fan has. The plastics on it feel a little bit cheaper, but everything is at a price. And at $13, you're going to make certain concessions on it. But for $13, there are very few fans that have this amount of lighting effect at this performance level. There are fans that have more performance, but less RGB. And there are also fans that have same performance with less RGB, all at a similar price. I'm performance first personally, but this doesn't seem like a terrible pick. I hope to acquire the regular edition, so regular airflow, to see how they perform, hopefully similarly, because I'm trying to generate that data set for how much effect does a reverse blade fan have on its performance versus its original normal airflow counterpart. Anyways, that's a different topic, a topic for a different day. Thank you very much for joining me here on Computer Tech and More. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next time.